Thank you. I'm very excited to be here by the invitation of Senator Rand Paul and the Senate Tea Party Caucus. It's a privilege to be here. Do we have any Virginia Tea Party patriots in the crowd? You know, just a few years ago, everyone knew that a $400 billion annual federal deficit was unsustainable, unforgivable, and reckless. Now, in the midst of a great recession, we've rung up federal deficits of nearly $1.5 trillion. And now, the CBO says that our 2011 deficit will be $1.5 trillion this year. Individual Americans, uncertain about their jobs, are wisely trying to reduce their debt and get their own houses back in order. But collectively, Washington can't see this simple wisdom. Federal income has fallen dramatically, but borrowing and spending have accelerated. We're borrowing at a rate that is almost equal to 10% of our national GDP. And we're spending so much money that we can't even borrow it fast enough. The Federal Reserve has to print more money just to keep up. So even as Americans try to reduce their own debt, the federal government is piling even more debt on their backs. The international financial markets know what it means when a nation monetizes its debt, even if Washington doesn't. Commodity, food, and energy prices have been climbing for the last 12 months. Corn prices have risen 69%. Wheat prices have risen 44%. Sugar prices have risen 15%. And we are now back at almost $3 a gallon for gas and climbing. Worst of all, this inflation is hurting the poorest of Americans. Despite all that, the Obama administration wants to raise the debt limit, which means the Fed will just print more money, driving prices even higher. The Obama administration doesn't get it. On January 21st, Deputy Treasury Secretary Neil Wolin warned of a catastrophic consequence if Congress failed to raise the debt limit. Here's what he said. The Department of Treasury has always emphasized, regardless of which party has held the White House or either House of Congress, that the only way to prevent default and protect America's creditworthiness is to enact a timely increase in the debt limit. In other words, according to the Deputy Secretary, the only way to protect our creditworthiness is to raise the debt limit and continue borrowing money.
No.
We cannot keep kicking the can down the road and hoping someone else will have to make the tough choices, because we are nearly at the end of the road. There is no one left to make the tough choices. It is up to us. History and basic economics tells us that no nation can borrow its way to prosperity or maintain endless deficits. It always ends badly. So enough is enough. We must have the courage and the heart to stand up and to make it stop. Americans are better than this, and we are better than this, and we can do this, but we need to start now. And we will with the members of this new Senate Tea Party Caucus.
Yeah.
This week, Senator Rand Paul released a plan to cut $500 billion from the federal budget. I was very excited to see the plan because it eliminates several departments and slashes several others. Senator Paul's courageous move towards greater reductions in spending and Senator Lee's balanced budget initiative demonstrates the leadership that a new generation of Tea Party leaders can bring to Washington, D.C. Senator Paul, Senator Mike Lee, Senator DeMint, the Tea Party knows, and all of you know, that the government doesn't grow the economy. Businesses do. The government doesn't empower people to find dignity and self-sufficiency through productive work, businesses do. And the government doesn't create jobs for millions of unemployed Americans, businesses do.
Amen.
The difference is this: government hires people to spend money, and businesses hire people to make money. And that's the big difference. Businesses have already told us what they need: functioning and free capital markets, a low and stable tax environment, not a 39% corporate tax environment, sound currency, and sensible regulations. Washington's agenda has put a stranglehold on our economy. So let's get government out of the driver's seat and give the wheel back to business. Because, to borrow an analogy, the Obama administration isn't driving our country into a ditch, they're driving it off a cliff, and we have to stop them. The gravity of the federal debt situation is enormous. 2 years ago, when I gave the first tax day rally speech, it was $11 trillion. Less than 2 years later, it's $14 trillion. If we don't make the hard decisions now, the decisions will be made for us. And I worry. I have 3 kids, 8, 7, and 4. And I really worry that the day of reckoning is closer than many in Washington realize. Americans need jobs, not unemployment checks. We must drastically slash the budget, but we must also unleash the creative and productive American spirit. There are many ways to do this, and we are only beginning to discuss them thanks to the leaders like Senator Rand Paul, Senator Mike Lee, and Senator DeMent of the Senate Tea Party Caucus. Economies run on energy, hard work, and creativity. And we have an abundant amount of all of those things in America. So let's get started with the spending cuts, the balanced budget, and job creation, and let all of us lend our support to the new Senate Tea Party Caucus.